All right. Hey, good afternoon, folks. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Today is Tuesday, September 24th, 2024. This is your afternoon update on Tropical Storm Helene, named from the National Hurricane Center at 11 a.m. this morning. This was PTC 9, is moving through the Western Caribbean, forecast to get pretty close to the Yucatan Peninsula, turn to the Gulf of Mexico, and landfall in Western Florida as a powerful hurricane on Thursday and into Friday. So we're going to do two videos here today. This video is just going to be a general update on Hurricane Helene, and then we're Tropical Storm Helene, Freudian slip there, and then we're going to move over into the regional update for Florida as far as impacts, surge, winds, rain, that kind of thing. We're going to try to cover as much as we can. We're definitely going to drill down in the Jacksonville area, but we're going to do our best to cover, at least kind of talk about the rest of the state of Florida as far as impacts. So we're going to split it up, storm and then impacts into two different videos. So hopefully that's a little easier for people to digest. So National Hurricane Center 5 p.m. advisory. Lots of new watches and warnings out with this package. We're looking at the experimental forecast cone. Again, apologies, still gacked on cold medicine, so, this might sound weird time to time. But this is showing all of the watches and warnings, not just along the coast. So to generally summarize what we have at this hour, a hurricane warning has been issued from much of the Big Bend of Florida, from about Tampa Bay over to just past Apalachicola. This includes Apalachee Bay, the Big Bend region, and down towards Tampa. We have tropical storm warnings in effect for much of central Florida down to south of Tampa, and to include, I think, most of the Florida southwest coast, also the lower Keys and the Dry Tortugas. And then we have tropical storm watches extending down to about Lake Okeechobee and then back up the east coast of Florida to include all of Jacksonville and southeast Georgia. And notice how now hurricane watches have been extended inland to several counties in South Georgia. Not so much southeast Georgia, but more southwest Georgia. And those tropical storm warnings also extend slightly over towards like that Destin area, but stop short of Pensacola. So overall, National Hurricane Center's afternoon track and cone has not explicitly changed. They've jogged it a little bit to the west this afternoon as the center is moving towards the Yucatan Peninsula. We're expecting it to brush the Yucatan Peninsula, leave the Yucatan tomorrow afternoon, and then begin to quickly pick up speed, size, and intensity as it moves across the Gulf of Mexico. By 2 p.m. Thursday, this should be somewhere near the Tampa Bay area, and then it will make landfall late Thursday evening into overnight on Friday around the Big Bend. Much of the worst weather with this, though, will be during the day on Thursday, and then, of course, the landfall Thursday evening, and then by Friday, this will quickly move up into Georgia. So again, if you want to look at the watches and warnings in effect, they're on the National Hurricane Center, or if you want to pause the video, this will generally show you who's under what. Let's look at some of the satellite presentation here this afternoon. We're over on Cyclonic Wix, a little bit different site here, but still a good one, and looking at some different satellite imagery. Overall, Helene is organizing pretty quickly at this hour. Earlier today, we generally saw that low-level center of circulation pop out briefly, but now you see the clouds are beginning to advance around that northern side and western side of the cyclone, which indicates a few things to us. Number one, that the wind shear has begun to diminish quite a bit over the storm. Earlier today, we could draw a line through the center of circulation, and most of the thunderstorm activity was on the east side, but the west side was still very limited. However, through the day, the thunderstorms have begun to wrap around that eye, or that low-level center of circulation, and now it's starting to close off. We also seem to have a much better alignment of the vortex. Low to mid levels looks a lot better vertically stacked, and Helene is over warm ocean waters, and again, wind shear vectors are decreasing. The upper low over the Yucatan is weakening as it moves away, and this shows up pretty well on water vapor imagery. We can still see a band of dry air coming across the Yucatan and down in, but the outflow from Hurricane John has subsided because that storm has dissipated over the mountains of Central America and southern Mexico. So there's still some westerly shear moving into the storm, and it'll be interesting to see tonight if this has any effect on Helene. Right now, the thunderstorms and moisture are increasing around the circulation center, which means it might be wrapping off and defending itself from that dry air. But if we look at the GFS model, we average a sounding near that west side of the storm. And I know this is kind of a confusing looking graph. This is basically what a weather balloon makes. But investigating this shows there's a nice layer of mid-level dry air from about 5 to 300 millibars. And there is about 15 or 20 knots of westerly wind shear with this dry air. So when you have wind shear and you have the dry air together, you might still have some advection into that backside of the cyclone. So we're going to see if that does impact Helene at all. But the hurricane hunters have found pressure falling in the storm. and it looks like it might be going off for a period of intensification, which was expected. Helene is expected to be a hurricane by tomorrow afternoon as it's leaving the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula. Some of the reasons here: very warm water. It is over some of the deepest, warmest water in the Atlantic Basin right now, and it's only going to continue to see that as it moves through. And then as Helene moves away from the Yucatan and moves up towards the Big Bend of Florida, you can see it crosses a portion of the Loop Current, which is also incredibly deep, warm water. So the storm is going to have plenty of fuel, and on an average, the Gulf of Mexico is about as hot as we've ever seen it in recent modern records. So Helene absolutely has plenty of gas to work with. Ships climatology for intensification. Hurricane Center still forecasts this to landfall again as a major hurricane, at least Category 3 intensity, could be higher. Our models have kind of went back and forth. Some runs they're really, really aggressive. Other runs they back down a little bit. Generally speaking, though, I think Category 3 to Category 4 is what we should expect from this storm. It is going to be a large and powerful hurricane. This is the ship's guidance showing over a 50% chance of the storm being 25 knots or 30 miles per hour stronger. So again, a better than 50-50 shot of this being a hurricane within 24 hours. That's about 4.5 times the normal average for intensification. And then it shows potential for high intensification towards the end of its forecast track. So no surprise there. This graphic here from Tomer Berg's website. So it's not surprising given the upper level weather features in play here. We have an upper low trying to capture Helene as she moves northward. So the steering and whatnot has not really significantly changed. But as the storm moves into the Gulf of Mexico on Wednesday and Thursday, there will be a very potent upper air pattern in place to help ventilate and pull mass away from the storm and really get it to supercharge almost and pull that air out and let it breathe quite a bit. This will also open up the overall divergence aloft, and this will allow the storm to expand in size quite a bit. And this will not really significantly change until it gets very close to land. GFS does indicate that some wind shear picks up in that last bit of its travel, but I don't think by that point you'll have much there. If anything, just a leveling off of intensity. I could see a peak somewhere near Tampa Bay or maybe just before landfall, kind of what Adalia did last year where it peaked and then it came down just a hair maybe before landfall. But I think that Helene is going to have a very favorable environment, and this is not a storm I would be counting out at all. One of the big checkpoints we've got left is how the storm looks leaving the Yucatan, as we've talked about for the last few days. As it moves out into the Gulf, what do we have in place? Given the organizational trends, I'd say we probably are going to have a hurricane. GFS calls a 990 millibar central pressure. Some of our regional hurricane models, though, painting a little bit different story. HFAS-A, these are the first runs that actually have NOAA's tail feed Doppler radar data in them. So this is a bit better of a guess from these models. And there's some pretty stark disagreement. One run has this at 988 with a little bit of an organizational kind of shift where that low center is not exactly aligned with some of the upper level winds. It looks like it has some significant interaction with the Yucatan Peninsula's tip, of which it won't cause massive weakening, but it could cause the storm to stumble for a period. And then it takes off from there and intensifies. HWRF shows a 968 millibar hurricane leaving the Yucatan, which would not only be a category, be a hurricane, but it'd be probably a category 2 leaving the Yucatan going into early Thursday, late tomorrow night. And, overall, that's still what we expect. And then the storm just moves north from there, captured by the trough, and locks in on Appalachia Bay. Overall, the tracks have been remarkably consistent, targeting that upper Appalachia Bay, maybe just west of that. Some models like the GFS are still coming in more on the east side of that. And while these micromanages matter a lot for regional impacts, for example, if I move this about 50 miles closer to Tampa, I can greatly increase the storm surge versus if I keep it another 50 or 60 miles offshore. And of course, whoever winds up on the east side of these tracks will get the worst of Helene's wrath. This will be moving fast as well, so we're going to have a large, powerful, and fast-moving hurricane going into the Big Bend. So this is going to bring tremendous impacts to the region. I'm going to talk about that in the video separately from this. We're going to talk all about surge, rain, wind, that kind of thing, who can expect what. So I don't want to get into that, but I just want to really pound the table and stress how intense this hurricane may be coming in. I know that we had Debbie come in and it wasn't all that powerful. And last year, Adalia got a lot of billing and hype. And then it really kind of turned out that storm wasn't all that bad, except a very localized part of the panhandle. But this storm will not be the same. This will be a larger and more powerful hurricane. And although the model guidance has trended back to Earth, I don't want people to think that this is not going to still be pretty strong as it comes in. But you can see here, ensemble mean members all locking in right there just to the west of the northern part of Appalachia Bay at that landfall point. So that's what I got for you guys today on your update on Helene, broad strokes. Again, intensification expected tonight, more rapid intensification expected on Wednesday. Helene will take off in forward speed on Thursday, greatly increase her size and her wind field and her overall wind strength. And then this will landfall late Thursday evening in the Big Bend. Widespread impacts to Florida coming on Thursday, early Friday. And then Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, you guys are going to get a lot of wind and rain. And please don't discount this storm in South Georgia. Even in northern Georgia, this could be a pretty nasty storm as it moves in, given the size and the forward speed. That's what I got for you guys on this update. Again, coming up after this, we'll be recording the regional impacts update. So stay tuned for that. And always, as always, guys, thanks for watching and have a good one.